Hello, this is your host, Reginald Andre, and this is another episode of the Miami Business Leaders. And today we're going to be talking about you're building your business, and let's see how the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program can help you grow. And this is something very special to me because I actually am a graduate of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. And as we speak, we're going to be having Scott Byrd. Goldman Sachs is a transformative initiative designed to help businesses owners accelerate their growth. In this episode, we'll be discussing the motivations that bring entrepreneurs to the program, the expertise of the faculty and advisors, and the challenges business owners face on their journey. You'll learn how participants gain valuable skills, overcome common obstacles, and develop the tools and confidence needed to propel their business to new heights. The Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business is dedicated to fostering job creation and economic opportunity by providing access to education, capital, and support services. And with a curriculum designed by Babson College, the nation's top-ranked school for entrepreneurship, the program offers a multi-week business education experience, one-on-one business advice, and a community of like-minded business owners, all aimed at driving long-term success and growth. And guys, again, if I'm going to be sending this video to all of my friends that have businesses, because I'm going to be talking about in this video how this program has transformed our business, ArcSolver Cybersecurity. But without further introduction, Scott Byrd, welcome.
Reginald, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, Scott, thinking about how long we've actually known each other professionally, I was cohort 3. So what was that, like around 2016-ish?
It was 2014.
2014, wow.
And I know that because your cohort, next month in October, your cohort was the cohort where I started the program 10 years ago.
Wow. So 10 years. And I remember I was a little young lad. I don't even know how I heard about the program, but I heard that it was going to help the business grow and it was going to give me some, just some different coaching and so forth like that. And not knowing what I know now, it just changed. It literally changed my business. Our business at the time was probably doing, 300, 400,000 in revenue. And I remember a guy, John Hall, and I remember sitting, talking with him right outside the McDonald's. And I was in a very big situation where I knew that the way my business model was at the time, it was shifting. Cybersecurity was starting to become a thing. What they call the break fix, which is kind of like when a computer breaks, you go and fix it. That was going away. My competition was eating my lunch. So although I was making good revenue at that time, I knew that I couldn't continue. And what he told me was that you needed to build, you didn't want to be the taxi cab driver of the IT industry. And was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, well, look right. And this is 10 years ago. So we had way more cabs and Uber was fairly new to Miami. And he says, if you go to the airport, if you look right here across the street, for every 10 Uber rides, you have that one taxi cab driver waiting for someone to come. And your business is eventually going to be that taxi cab driver, kind of like that frog in the boiling water. You're looking around and you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, we have a little competition, not realizing that they were going to just rip you apart. And from there, I, with his mentorship and then with the other staff at the Goldman Sachs program, we said, you know what, we're going to go ahead and rip this current business plan and we're going to go all cybersecurity and all managed services. And I'm so happy to report that with that, I was able to actually bring my business to the top cybersecurity company 3 years in a row in Miami. So I am a great advocate. Several of my friends have taken the program. And Scott, when I heard you said yes for this interview, I was ecstatic.
Thank you, Richard. Great story. And it is probably one that many others have experienced to some degree. You did yours voluntarily, but I think recently with COVID, a lot of people were forced to make a pivot and change. I'm so happy to hear of your continued success all these years later.
Yes, yes. So Scott, so for the people that don't know you, tell us a little about yourself. I know, are you still an avid bicyclist
So
or runner?
yeah, so I was a runner. It's been 10 years. So my knees, I've switched now into working out at the gym, back into working out at the gym, which feels great. Funny thing, my wife and my daughters, I have twin daughters who are in college. They are towards the end of their training to do a half marathon.
Wow.
So yeah, so I've brought down my distance, and they picked up the mantle and they're running. They're literally running with it.
All right. Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Awesome. So let's get down to the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program. So, first of all, could you clear up maybe just to understand? So, because we have this is being hosted at the Miami-Dade College Wilson campus. But
Correct.
in my intro, I also mentioned Babson College, and then
Yep.
we also talked about Goldman Sachs. So, how does all three of these, institutions are merging and working together?
Sure, sure. Well, before I answer that, let me go back and give it another little high level description of what the program is, and then we'll
Sure.
get into some of the players.
Okay.
So yesterday, I heard from an alumni who mentioned this program is kind of like a mini MBA program, right? Um, and by that, it's I'll say it's in person. So one of the questions we get all the time: do we do it on Zoom? Nope. You physically come downtown. If you come downtown one day a week, it's generally Thursday, all day Thursday for class. We ask you to show up by 8:30 sharp. We begin class. However, we provide breakfast, a lunch, and even a snack for the participants. So you show up all day in class, and it's basically over 12 weeks. And every week is a different module, and a module is a subject. So what we found is our business owners are really good at what they do, right? So we've got really good doctors, we got good engineers, attorneys, owners of hair salons, you name it, HVAC. But what's in common is nobody taught them the business of business. So they've gotten to a certain level of success, right? So this program is not for startups. You have to be around for at least 2 years. They've gotten to a certain level of success because of what they know. And the challenge is they're not able to grow and scale because of what they don't know. So they join us and we help them with that. So it's an in-person educational class for about 3 months. So it all started, the Great Recession. I was thinking about it this morning. The Great Recession started around 2008. And that's probably another thing that we all remember if we were in business at that point. And the genesis of our program started in 2010 when Goldman Sachs wanted to do something for small business owners in the United States to help them grow their business, scale, and therefore hire more people, increase employment. So Goldman Sachs had been already doing something called 10,000 Women. It's a similar program, smaller revenue, very small companies, women owned, around the world in underdeveloped countries. And Babson College, who's ranked by US News and World Report as the #1 undergraduate entrepreneurial college in the United States for like the last 27 consecutive years. So they're the ones, they're it. They created that program and they had them create this program. So that's Babson College. They provide the content, they train us of the content, and they train us how to teach it in their way. Then we have another, Goldman Sachs is the one who provides all the funding and the management. And there's another partner, which is the Initiative for Competitive Inner City, ICIC. And that's created by Michael Porter of Harvard Business School. And they do many different things around the country. They're largely around economic development in depressed areas of the inner city around our country. They're the ones who actually determine who gets into our program. So as you know, when you walk in that program, It's a very diverse, eclectic group, right? And it's the industries. We have people who do the most amazing things. We have one individual who got the contract to clean the tunnels to the port. And he's just this engineer mind, and he put together this contraption that cleans the sides of that tunnel. It's amazing the different things that our alumni do. So that's ICIC. They decide who gets into the program. We have Babson who creates the curriculum, and then Goldman Sachs who oversees everything. And what most people don't know, I'll mention, they're never going to ask you for an account, as you can attest to. They're also the third largest philanthropic organization in the world. They put a tremendous amount of money out there, and that is to, and they never talk about themselves. So you'll never see them sponsoring a golf hole at a local tournament or a dinner somewhere, but they put a tremendous amount of resources into things that they feel are very important to them.
Awesome. And then so with Miami-Dade College, they're hosting as far as that, right?
Right. So Miami-Dade College is one of about 20 in the country. The next location is in New Orleans.
Oh, wow.
They look for colleges of high level commitment and excellence to partner with. So we are actually employees of Miami-Dade College.
Mhm.
We're paid through the Goldman Sachs Foundation. Goldman Sachs has committed $750 million to this program since 2010, which was going to help and impact what will be 20,000 owners of mature small businesses.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've already hit 10,000.
Yes.
We're now about 15,000 on our way to 20. And we have been here at Miami-Dade College. We started in September of 2013 with the first class January of 2014, the same year you went through it.
Wow. Wow. So no, thank you so much for that history. Now it kind of all makes sense even for me. So let's now talk about the program. So what are some of the motivations of business owners to join? We know it's an MBA program. I know you mentioned that, like, hey, a lot of, like, for me, I went to school for IT. I didn't necessarily go to school to run a business. It just found myself where I felt that I can do it better than where I was working before. Plus, I got fired, so I had no choice but to but to do that. But nevertheless, you may have a business owner now just listening to this podcast. They think they're doing everything right, and they're like, "Oh, why do I have to go back to school?"
Right, right. So the motivations. I hear probably two things the most. One is I hear a lot of times people, business owners, they feel alone. There's nobody they feel that they can confide in. There's a lot of things in their normal course of business they're not comfortable telling their employees, understandably, right? So feeling alone. The second thing I hear a lot is the frustration. Why are they not able to grow and scale to the level that they feel they should be able to? So feeling alone and that frustration of growth are probably the two things that I hear the most. I will, if I have some good news with these, for feeling alone, once you join the cohort, and Reginald, you can attest to this, you instantly part of a cohort. And it's generally somewhere between 20 and 40 different business owners that you're now part of. You start off as a stranger, but you're going through this shared experience together and growing and generating bonds. So during that process of 3 months, you're going from stranger to really, really good friends, right? Trusted business owners. And then we get into the alumni section. And when I discuss the alumni section, I used to be the alumni manager. I like to phrase the alumni section, don't laugh, it's a little bit like the title of my wedding song. And Rachel, I don't know if you ever heard me talk about it, but the title to my wedding song is "The Best Is Yet to Come."
Okay.
The best is yet to come. So I like to think that's how to describe the alumni program. And that, in your case, been 10 years now. So for 10 years, and by that is the alumni now, we have over 800 in the South Florida market, and there's over 15,000 across the country. And through some communication tools that we have exclusively for our alumni, you can communicate and get in touch with any of them to ask for how they solve certain problems. So another great statistic is 86% of our business owners do business with each other.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can attest to that too. But I have heard stories where people are at a convention and they bump into each other, don't know each other, different cities, and they find out they're both alumni of the program. The first thing they say to each other, because of this camaraderie that's been derived, is, what can I do for you? How can I help you? Who can I introduce you to? Right? So the first thing is this feeling. So I was in the military before, and if I meet somebody from the Air Force or the Army, I'll joke with them because I was in the Navy, but there's this strong sense of camaraderie and this bond. And that's what happens with alumni in our program. You're no longer alone. The second thing was this struggle with growing, right? So you know what you know, so you got to your level. On average, our business owners have revenue of about $750,000 on average. The minimum is 75,000. So you got to be in business for 2 years, 75,000 in revenue, and 2 employees. You can be one of them, but we need someone to answer the phone while you're with us, right? So, but on average, they have 11 employees. They've been around 11 years and about 750,000 in revenue on average. But they're not sure why they're not able to grow into the millions. What's holding me back, right? It's knowledge. It's among other things. So another good statistic is, as you know, we survey our alumni, and one of the surveys is 6 months after graduation, and that survey tells us that 66% of our graduates have grown revenue within 6 months.
Wow.
So they're already getting lift after just 6 months. So if I can tell you a story that sort of illustrates both points, we have a minute. If we go back to 2018, and Rachel, I don't know if you were there in 2018, but that was the very first Goldman Sachs summit that was held in Washington, D.C. And it was the opportunity for business owners, alumni, to come together as in one. And we had over 2,000 business owners there. At that time, it was the largest convening of business owners, small business owners, in the history of the country.
Wow.
Yeah, and so we had people like Sir Richard Branson who was there, Warren Buffett, Tyler Perry, Sarah Blakely. They were all part of this. It was a who's who, full of energy. I remember because we have WhatsApps with all our groups, as you know, and I was fortunate to be part of everybody's as the alumni manager, and I saw people taking pictures and saying, those ones who didn't come, they said, "I'm sorry, I thought you were going to a convention. It looks like you're at a rave party," because they had the bands going, the place was full of energy. But anyway, so that's a summit. That we were at the summit in 2018, and we had a social to bring our Miami people together to introduce them to each other, and then afterwards came the networking, right? Sort of impromptu, and everybody sort of went to the rooftop restaurants, and at that point we had 2 business owners. We'll say Dan and Patrick. They did their classes years apart. Patrick and his brother does e-commerce. They're really good at selling at Amazon. Dan and his wife, they moved down from New York a couple of years before. He went to the program, and they just bought this spill containment and safety supply company. And he was not good at e-commerce. But Dan and Patrick met and they hit it off. When they came back to Miami, all 4 of them got together. And it continued. And Patrick and his brother went out of their way to teach e-commerce to Dan and his wife. It's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. Fast forward to COVID. And Patrick and Dan are talking. Dan is showing him different supplies that he's selling. And Patrick has the idea, why don't you bundle those together? Put them together and sell them as one thing. In fact, why don't we call it a COVID kit? COVID kit. So Dan does that. Well, a few days later, Dan's there with his salespeople, and I have a terrible New York accent when I try to do that. But one of the salesmen says to Dan, "Hey, I've got somebody. They say they're from the Navy. What should I do?" Dan says, hang up. It's a scam, right? Well, a couple other salespeople say they've got somebody from the Navy. And eventually, what does Dan say? Give me the phone, right? So he grabs it and he talks to him. It turns out to be legit. Short story, Dan's company goes 10x in revenue from that point.
Wow.
He's selling almost his product exclusively to the U.S. Navy and also to many other municipalities in the state of Florida. So I say all that in that it's an impressive story. It also shows the power of the program because 10x on your revenue can actually crush a company if you don't have the structure to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it says a lot about what Dan did into his company. And it says so much about the relationship. So that being alone as well as that feeling of not knowing how to scale, those are things that I'm happy to tell you we have some great stories that how this program has helped our business owners.
Yeah, and I will attest to that. There's been several people that, well, like you said, we all have the WhatsApp group, and I have been able to do some business with some of my cohorts, and then I've been able to go to the networking events where I've been able to, talk and so forth like that. So it's I think, like you said, it's so different because to be in that room in Washington with 2,000 other business owners, and for that to be the first time ever, that just seems like wow, that's never happened before. But that's the power of what this program has done. So we talked about already the motivations, right? So you kind of highlight, they're going to learn, they're going to be able to network with each other. But let's also talk about who's actually doing the teaching. We know Babson College, the playbook is by them, but let's talk about the faculty and business advisors. I remember, I don't know if she's still there, but is Joyce still there?
Joy is still there. She's
Oh
our
my
lead.
gosh. The way she was able to just have those classes flow. So let's talk about their experience. We don't have to go to each one, but just generally speaking about, who's teaching the classes.
Yeah. So great question. The first, I would say that you've got business advisors that you're assigned a business advisor that helps you along the way. They're experienced. They've got the knowledge, the theory, as well as practical, and they help you take that knowledge on your journey and really tailor it to your unique industry, right? So they're along the ride with you. And then you've got faculty experts that are selected for each individual module based on their expertise, right? And they're taught the Babson content and they're taught sort of the Babson way of teaching. We don't lecture, we try to draw things out of you, right? We do a lot of questioning through this. So the reason we don't is there's a thing called, I think it's called the educational pyramid. And it says, try to retain information. What's the thing that you can do? The worst thing you can do, teach where the least amount of information is retained. And that happens to be lecturing. So when someone's being lectured to, only about 5% of the knowledge is actually retained, right? So we decide, well, why are we going to do that? What's the other side of the pyramid? So the other side of the pyramid is you do one of two things to retain it. Once you've gotten that knowledge, either teach it or implement it. Start doing it. So one thing as a former advisor, I would always ask my scholars, go find somebody and give them the gift of like that Reader's Digest version, right? The version of what you learned. Set a frequency to meet with them. It's not going to be 8 hours, a short period of time, and share with them what you learned and invite them to ask you questions to see how deep you know the information. And whatever you don't know, go back to your growth group, either in person or on the WhatsApp, and present that question. And let somebody there teach you. Now you're doing them a favor,
Right.
right? So that teaching or implement it. We know every single module there are business owners that come back and say, I went back and I made this change. I went back and I made this change. I had made these changes to certain documents. So that's kind of how it goes. Um, for those who haven't been in the program, it's different. I say it's not like you're going to the college for an English class, which I love my English class. I actually went to Miami-Dade and I love my English class. But if I could, I'd just tell you a little bit the program. When you're in that classroom, right? So what do you see? You see this big room full of about 30 business owners. You see all these like 5 or 6 round tables
Mhm.
with probably 6 business owners around each of these tables, right? And your table, you got 5 or 6 business owners at your table, and that's your growth group. They're on that journey with you, get to know them even better. And then you see in the background Joy, the lead faculty, and the business advisors and the staff. They're always there watching. Look, they're actually looking for your comprehension. Does it look like you're lost? And then they find a way to come in and just sort of nudge in, hey, Reginald, how you doing? So we try to keep you moving along. So you're in that space, and people generally tell us that they're feeling pretty good. They're feeling pretty good because these strangers are actually people they're getting to know, right? We do it in person. So it's not a face in a frame on a Zoom. It's people you're getting to know their stories. You're getting to trust. You're getting to understand and respect them as individuals. And there's a comfort, I think, in being in a room with like-minded business owners. Again, you're not alone anymore. And then I'd say what you hear, we do individual assignments, right? So Joy or somebody will tell you this theme, something you're going to work on. And so it's going to be individual. And you'll be in silence thinking about your business, not theory of Ford Motor Company, but your business. Then you're going to have this candid conversation one-on-one with another business owner there, where you're sharing and you're giving them, sometimes tough love, right, which they don't get anywhere else. And then we open it up to the group, and you'll hear a lot of energetic interactions with the group. And then we get it back to the cohort and we share what happened at each table. And a lot of respectful conversation comes from that. A lot of sharing comes from that. And during that time, as you know, as I mentioned, we have meals provided, breakfast, lunch, and snack. So you might be also with that aroma of some fresh coffee or those warm empanadas for a snack that's there. All of that's the environment that we try to evoke and not just sit there and lecture to you.
Right.
So the BAs are really experienced, real world experience, great theory, and they teach it the Babson way.
I was gonna save it for the end, but I mean, you've talked about free food, right? Everybody loves free food. You talked about these business advisors. It's at an A-class facility. I mean, how much does all this cost, anyways?
Well, so we never divulge the cost. The cost to the
No,
business.
yeah. The cost of this, yeah.
Okay, the cost of the business owner is zero. There is
Zero, zero,
$0.
zero. Well, you're getting a mini MBA degree, free food, being able to network with other business owners to grow your business. And I was gonna leave this to the end, but like you're just describing the program, and I know some people may be like, all right, so how much is this gonna cost? And I think that's so important to know that this is really totally funded in the sense that this is their way of giving, the Goldman Sachs program giving back to the community, as Scott mentioned.
Yeah, I tell you, I honestly feel I have the greatest job in the world. Yeah, I get to be with people like you. I get to see, watch your transformation, the beautiful things that you do to change who you are and change your company, and that it's free, right? You just have to qualify and have the right mindset to want to do this.
Mhm.
It's a great gig.
Yeah,
Great gig.
yeah, definitely. So you talked about the what they're learning. We kind of only can you just give like I don't remember how many modules there are, but just kind of give us a quick, accounting, like what type of modules will someone be learning?
Yeah, so early on, we talk about one talks about the difference between the many ideas that you get every day as a business owner, how to grow your business, to taking ideas and taking one of those and making it a growth opportunity. So we define what an opportunity is. So that's one of the early modules that we do that permeates throughout all the rest of the class. Then we talk about um, a lot about finance,
Mhm.
numbers. We talk about you as a leader, an individual, right? What is your style? Is your style good today as it will be tomorrow? Do you need to adjust or augment your style? The employees, why did they decide to be with you, right? How do you acquire? How do you train and retain good quality employees? We talk about marketing and selling. Are we focused on the right customer? We talk about process, technologies. We talk about getting capital. So we talk about negotiations. We talk about many different things, but that's a sample of the subjects, the modules that we go through.
Yeah. So everything you need in your business, and the interesting thing, well, the cool thing I would say too is, as it was mentioned, is when you're in that table with your other group leaders, and now you're talking about, oh yeah, maybe I should do some more marketing or SEO. And like I remember there was a guy in my group, his name I can't Charles Gutierrez. I'm definitely pronouncing his last name wrong, but he had a trucking company. And in our group, he was like the biggest, like here I was with 3 employees. He had like 30 employees, right? So everybody was looking at him like, we want to be like Charles when we grow up. And but I remember just the wisdom that he was giving, because a lot of times, yes, it's great. You got the Babson curriculum, you have the BAs, you have everybody. But then when you're hearing from other business owners to say, look, in this market, this is how you got to do it, that was priceless. And I remember Charles used to give us, he had a kind of the gray beard, and he would come and, hey, let me tell you how my experience and things like that. So every module, I can even remember when they were they had like a legal module, and you guys had some partners that came in and gave kind of not legal advice, but just one-on-one mentoring and so forth like that. That was great. And every module, every topic, you guys are bringing in a professional that knows about it. So it's not just reading a book. And because I've actually been in those type, I haven't been, but I've seen those programs too, where you come in, but it's that one teacher, one person teaching 10 different subjects. It's like they can't be a subject matter expert in all 10. So that's another thing that I love. So it also sounds, Scott, a little scary, because remember how you said minimum 2 employees, and the reason is because you want to make sure that someone else is answering the phone. And I remember when I was doing it, I was like, oh my gosh, what happens if like I'm not, like, because it's not only going there on the Thursdays, but there's homework, right? You got to come back and you got to implement and things like that. And that's going to take time, and that's scary because at the time I was the bottleneck of the company. Everything had to flow through me. And I think the famous saying is, working on your business or working in your business. And definitely I was doing the bad part of that. So what are some of the common weakness business owners have at the beginning of the program that you're seeing, and how do they change by the end of the program?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so there's probably two things that I see um, the most weakness with. One is financial literacy, right? Business owners out there hustling, doing a good job, but they don't speak the language of finance. And the second thing is the communications. So as much as they put themselves out there to get the business, it's not something they feel they like to do, or maybe they're not as good at it as they should be, right? So part of that speaks to their bravery because they do it in spite of that. So those are two things, and I'd say of those, we spend a lot of time in finance. We don't want to make anybody a bookkeeper or a CPA. We just want to have you be able to have more meaningful conversations with your CPA or your investors.
And how many people, I remember in my class, so many people were like, I'm firing my bookkeeper because I just realized that my books are a mess.
Yes, so one thing we try to do is also say, listen, most people, what is the one thing that they tell their CPA? Well, the one thing they always tell them is, I don't want to pay taxes, right?
Right.
That's the only instructions they've ever gotten. And so that's all they work from. So one is we have to say, this is not a program to start firing accountants and hiring new accountants. One is to have those good conversations and give new expectations, right? So they then have an opportunity to adjust what they deliver to you to see if they meet that. With this finance, I will name drop if I can for a minute. Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett happens to be on our board, and he's the one that was instrumental in making sure that we added extra content in finance in this
Okay.
program because he feels it's so important for business owners to speak the language of business, to speak finance. So that's one reason we have both financial statement workshop, which is very basic, almost from uh, not having any knowledge in finance, in accounting. We go through scenarios where we go through a pizza shop and we talk about ingredients and transactions, and we learn from that and writing it down how those things can be then taken to create an income statement that can be created, a balance sheet and a statement of cash flow, and how they're different and how they each tell us uh, different information. And then we go into our module 3, and it gets more involved in service companies and manufacturing companies. But we build it step by step. And the other thing I just say, which was the communication, from day one to the last day, you're going to have to speak.
Okay.
But it's a safe environment, and we start easy, right? The first part is just get up and tell us a little bit about yourself. And then later they become more involved, but they're structured. You've got your business advisor, you have the other people in your growth group and the other friends that you meet from within the cohort to practice with. So if anyone's there and they're just like, oh, that's going to stop me, use your courage, come in, trust us. We have over 800 alumni that have gone through locally and over 15,000. They've all done it, and they've all gone through this transformation to be better than when they started.
I actually remember that it was a mock pitch that we had to do, and I remember I was at least because I was very introvert at that time, and I going through that journey and having to like you said stand up and just give like the 30-second commercial and then refine your business and refine all of that. It really helped. It really helped more than I learned. I went to college, and that 12 weeks. I mean, yes, I'm not going to downplay what I learned in college, but that 12 weeks was just like a right on time. Um, school structure that I needed to now go ahead and pivot my business into what it is today.
That's great.
Yeah. So let's now talk about the determination of the business owners while they're in the program. What type of challenges have you seen them overcome?
Yeah, so I would say with that, there's probably there's a metric I'm going to share that I think is often misinterpreted, and that is 96% of our scholars who join the program, 96% of them complete the program.
Okay.
And some people look at that and they're saying, oh, maybe it's an easy program. You show up and you end up at the last day and you get your paper. Well, I'll say a couple things. One is if you miss 2 classes, you're going to have to start over again,
Wow.
right? Because you're going to miss out on content, number one. And number two, you're an important element to your growth group and to the cohort. So each of us brings strengths. And that day might be the day we needed your strength. We needed your leadership or technology or technical expertise, and you weren't there. So not only do we let you down, but you let them down. So if you miss two, you're going to have to start over again. So that's one thing. But the other one is the determination. 96%, I say it shows the value people get from this and the determination that the business owner feels as they're going through this and experiencing this program that sort of lucked into, I think, because you don't know what it is until you get here. And I tell you a quick story that I think illustrates that grit is I was a business advisor at the time, and this was one of my scholars. And about a third of the way through, she started not feeling well, and she started uh, going to see the doctor, and didn't know what was wrong. And she and her husband have a business together. And it got to the point about midway, she started going to the hospital and getting treatments. And then she started staying overnight and staying over several nights. And as we're getting close to the end of the program, Reginald, you remember Mod 8, it's about capital. So you have to make a 3-minute pitch that here's this idea that I've come up with, this growth opportunity where I'm going to take my company, and I need capital for people, technology, whatever it may be. So it's your pitch to whether debt or equity to get that capital. So the second half of that day, we do a lot of pitching. We bring in people, a lot of folks from Goldman Sachs come in to be coaches, people in the CSBA or other places in our community come in to help be coaches. And you got to get up, you got to communicate and pitch to them. And you do 3 pitches. So it starts small, you get into bigger and bigger rooms. And so now there's 3 big rooms. There's probably about 10 or 12 in that room, and we're done. Well, at least the scholars think they're done. And then we all get back to the same room. On the wall is all of these, probably a dozen or more of the folks from Goldman Sachs and other business coaches. And then everyone's in their tables. And then we announce that there's actually going to be some more pitches. That from the last 3 rooms, the coaches each selected one person to move forward. So now there's 3 people that we're going to announce that are going to get up and pitch again. And I remember watching, because I knew that this person, I'm going to call her Nancy, that Nancy had impressed them, and she was going to pitch again with amongst 2 others. So I saw her when they announced her name, and you could see both that excitement, wow, and then also that fatigue, because as I mentioned, she had been in the hospital. And what I didn't say is from that morning, she came in this time, she arrived in a wheelchair.
Oh.
So what she had been doing, I'll go back a second, in the hospital, they wake her up at 2 in the morning to draw blood and do vitals. She would negotiate. She would use her negotiation skills.
Oh.
And she would tell them, I will let you take my vitals, but you have to stay here for 3 minutes and listen to my pitch. So early in the morning, several times, she would be pitching to nurses and doctors. And so the other 2 had pitched, and she was going to pitch. And she's at the table with her wheelchair, and I see her roll closer to the table, lock the wheels, grab hold of the chair, and then to the table, and she, with her upper body, lifts herself. And like a good Hollywood ending, Nancy won the pitch.
Wow.
So, when we talk about 96% graduation rate, it's not because it's easy. It's about the grit and determination of the business owners and the value they find in the program.
Wow. Thank you, Scott, for sharing that story. And I think that's what it's all about, is it's helping that business owner, because most business owners become business owners, I would say, by accident, right? But then they have to then go, and they have to grit, and they have to have that hustle and that street smart to then grow. So let's as we wrap up, we have it here on the screen, but just in case someone's listening and not physically looking at a video, how do they apply, and how does that application process look like?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah. So I put the site to apply. www.10ksbapply.com.
You're not going to change it to 20 KSB? No.
No, we're sticking with our branding.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
so what would happen is check out, there's information on the website. If it looks like it's the program for you, then we would encourage you to apply, right? The requirements, 2 years, 2 employees, 75,000 revenue, be the owner, and want to grow. We'll see that in our system. And if it looks like you're in there, we'll say, great, we would like to interview you. Here's a link. We'd like you to upload some documents in support of what you told us. Give us some financial statements, proof you're the owner, you're in good standing with the state, things like that. And then we take that, we fly some people in, and we do interviews. So it's in-person interviews in our building where we host the class. And I tell people, feel good about this because we want to bring people into the program. We're not looking to exclude people. We just want to make sure it's the right program for you at the right time for you, and you understand the commitment and the extra 5 or 10 hours on the weekend that it's going to take. And you want to know that too, right? You come with your questions to ask. And you'll be at this interview. It'll be somebody from our staff, Goldman Sachs, and somebody from that initiative for competitive inner city. We're there, we're looking forward to it, and we're eager to meet you. That's the process.
I'm curious. So you interview roughly how much a term?
Yeah, so it's probably between 40 and 50 people.
Oh, okay, okay. So you get about 40, 50 people that come. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, let's first start. How many people apply?
Yeah, so that varies. I would say somewhere 120, 150 people
Wow,
apply.
wow.
And
And Goldman Sachs is the only. This program is the only one in the state of Florida.
correct.
So how far have you seen someone drive from?
Yeah, so Stewart is probably the furthest north that we see somebody, and people from the Keys. If it's further than that, so people take the Bright Line, right? So that's a huge testament to the value. What they often do is they take the train, they bring their computer, and they make that useful, productive time
Yeah.
going and coming back. In fact, sometimes on the way back, they've got their trusted person and they're sharing what they learned with them during that train ride. If you're outside of that, if you're in Orlando or Tampa, if you're in Montana, um, if you're in Puerto Rico, what you will be part of is our national cohort. And that's largely virtual, but it's a bit of a hybrid. And you'll spend the last 4 days in New York City at the Goldman Sachs headquarters.
Wow.
Yeah, so that cohort is around 150 to 200 business owners. So when I tell you all across the country, we have alumni, 15,000. They are in all different parts, not just the 20 some sites around the sites that we have physical locations.
Wow. Awesome. Well, thank you, Scott. This has been a great interview and just having a conversation really as far as the great things that these 10K, I just feel like I have to call it 20K, but we'll stick to the branding. The 10K SV program has done countless stories that have not even been told or known about. And it's awesome because there's no, a lot of, sometimes you can anything on an app, you join for free and then later on they hit you up with something. I have never had anybody ever call me for anything, and it's just truly from the heart because they want to see the community being rich, and I know Miami has been better because of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 program economically and for its people. So on behalf of me and my team, I would like to thank you, Scott, thank the business advisors, thank Goldman Sachs for helping my business grow, because I will ever be a poster boy for anything you guys ever need us for. And thank you again, Scott, for having us today.
So thank you so much.
One more thing. Oh, I'm sorry. So the at the time of this recording, we're September. We're going to be putting this out in a couple of days. So I know people may be watching this, even in a year from now, but just for today, September the 25th, 2024, when is your application deadline that if they're watching this right, in the next few days that they have to apply?
Great question. October 15th is the deadline to submit your first application. We do this 3 times a year. So there's always a cycle. We teach in the fall, in the spring, starting, this will be January 21st, will be the day we start the new one. And then we do one in the summer. So we're always in a cycle.
Okay.
If you miss it, there's another one right around the corner.
Right. And I know sometimes you may even interview someone and they're just not there yet, or they don't have everything in order, or whatever the case is. And you say, you know what, try again, just fix this, try again. And then, they're able to get in. So,
Yes, and if something happens, also you are allowed in certain circumstances to defer after you've been approved. So it could also be, God forbid something happens, or there's a better time. We do allow you to do that without going through the whole interview process again as well.
okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott Byrd. 10K, that's the number 10, the letter K, sbapply.com, and you'll find all the information there. This has been another episode of the Miami Business Leaders. I am your host, Reginald Andre, with ArcSolver's Cybersecurity and IT Services. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.